Welcome back, everybody. Sam the electrician here, speaking about Western independence and Alberta separation. Big shout out to viewer and commenter Harley Man. He pointed out this article in the Calgary Herald for me yesterday. He said I'd probably get a kick out of making a video about it, and as funny as I find it, it also kind of enrages me a little bit. So it's quite the read, where people writing about Western Canada from outside Western Canada have to attribute separation to some nefarious foreign influence, and that we could never, just that alone says it all. That Western Albertans and Western Canadians could never make up their own mind about this stuff. We have to be influenced by nefarious Russians, to have an opinion. None of us could have formed this opinion ourselves, in the 100 years since. Since 1905 and 114 years that there's been a separatist movement in Alberta. I believe 1931 was the first time someone actually ran politically in a separatist movement. An independent guy, I believe he held a seat and lost it in a by-election 3 months later, but something like that. Anyway, I don't know for sure, but it's and then to try to attribute Russian meddling and Russian interference, but they must be manipulating those dumb Westerners who can't think for themselves. It feeds into more of why we want to leave, like Eastern Canada and the Europeans who contributed to this article just can't even fathom the fact that we can think for ourselves and we're very independent. We don't need your bloated bureaucracy and overreaching government globalism. We don't want it. Anyway, so the the article says, one part it quotes, it says, RT and Sputnik, which I guess are Russian outlets, for media outlets, highlight and amplify fringe voices that are not accepted by either mainstream research or mainstream politics. And by amplifying them, it in turn creates a perception that something is more popular than it actually is. That's really weak, for one thing, because 33% of people in the latest Ipsos poll in Alberta support separation. So is that what you consider a fringe? Because that's about the mandate that Justin Trudeau got in on. And Notley got in on a 38% mandate in this province because the right vote was split. By the way, there was no groundswell for the NDP. They were just there while the right fought itself and split the vote. That's the only reason the NDP got in this province, and it's the only reason they will ever get in for the next 40 years if we can't leave. So anyway, then this guy also says, the ultimate goal isn't just to influence an election, but rather to undermine democratic processes and free speech in Western society. Okay, so somebody has to explain this to me. If you have people that are highlighting fringe opinions and opinions that aren't mainstream political ideas or accepted by the mainstream, and bringing them to light, how is that destroying free speech? Isn't that amplifying free speech and giving a platform to the people that don't have as big of a voice? Isn't that the definition of free speech? So good one there, disinformation experts from Europe. One of these outfits is called Global Disinformation Index. I looked them up. They're based in London, England. They have 8 employees, 205 followers on LinkedIn, and just typical internet babble buzzwords. Their view is, we envision a world free of disinformation and its harmful effects. So that's right out of 1984, because your disinformation, or what you consider to be disinformation, is not the same as what I would consider to be disinformation. Disinformation is subjective. You can try to, with all your definitions on your website, you can try to say that it is not, but it is completely depends on which way you're looking at the information and how you choose to interpret it. So this is just total leftist globalist garbage. And it's ironic that the Russians that they're blaming on this disinformation were actually writing articles for their own people in Russia. And yet these people from London, England are contributors to a Calgary Herald article. Isn't that disinformation? like, if the Russians are interested in Western separatism and writing it for their own consumption, for their own people back home, that's their business. You want to talk about meddling in an election? How about Obama supporting Trudeau 5 days before the election kicked off? How about that? That's not foreign government actors interfering in an election. Okay, he's not in the government anymore, but give me a break. If that's not election meddling by a foreign influencer, I don't know what is. Nobody complains about that on the left. Kind of strange. And if you want a real example of disinformation, go over to the Rebel Media and look at Ezra Levant's video on this new story that came out that 11,000 scientists have signed on to say climate change is going to kill everybody. Chicken Little, sky is falling story, as usual, coming from the climate change cultists. He looked into some of the names apparently, and some of the people they don't even have any education, or they're just names on a list. They're not scientists. None of them are planetary scientists or geologists or climatologists. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's just garbage. That is pure disinformation. But that's okay, because the people who write these articles and get these foreign people to come and comment on how we can't make up our own minds, they're globalists too. So they can't even fathom the fact that we don't want to be part of their worldview. So anyway, probably going on enough about this. This video is getting a little long. I do have one other thing to say about it, actually. A public relations company, HK Strategies, say that Twitter Wexit was a result of bots, but then offered no proof, and when questioned said, we can't share any of that data with you. So it's an unsubstantiated allegation is what that is, and yet the Calgary Herald printed it. I'd be embarrassed if I was Calgary Herald for printing the story. And then the last thing that I read was a panel of 5 senior civil servants was established to inform Canadians about potential incidents that could threaten the country's ability to have free and fair elections. Well, the first thing is that we have paper ballots that you mark with a pencil. So that is half the battle right there. If we ever move to electronic balloting, then we could be in trouble. Anyway, their conclusion was, quote, the panel did not observe any activities that met the threshold for public announcement or affected Canada's ability to hold a free and fair election. End quote. Foreign interference indeed. We want to leave. Get used to it. Take it easy, everybody.